regularly scheduled Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, Plymouth, Massachusetts, on December 16th, 2024, our last meeting of 24. We're having a little technical difficulties for the people at home that are trying to watch this. We have audio only. So bear with us. And I just heard from the rest of the board, they're happy there's no pictures. Okay, we're going to start right off with case number 4143. Boker LLC, 186 Warren Avenue, 186 Warren Avenue, and Mr. Ambrose. Let's have Kevin read the legal ad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Case number 4143, the Plymouth Zoning Board of Appeals on the zoning bylaw will hold a public hearing in the Great Hall, Town Hall, 26 Court Street, Plymouth, Mass, on Monday, December 16th, 2024 at 7 p.m. to hear the petition of Bowker LLC requesting a post facto special permit required per section 2054 R25 and dimensional table to waive required side setbacks for an existing detached single-family house on the property of 186 Warren Avenue, shown as Lot 123 on Plat 42 of the Assessor's Map dated January 1, 2024 in an RR zone. The petitioner or his or her representative and any other person desiring to be heard on this matter should appear at the time and place designated.
Thank you. Seated on this case will be Mr. Leary, Mr. O'Reilly, Mr. Conroy, Mr. Connor, and myself. And Mr. D'Ambrosia will be representing.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. O'Reilly. Good evening, everyone. For the record, Rob D'Ambroso, attorney at law with D'Ambroso Law here in Plymouth. As Mr. O'Reilly read into the record, I'm here on behalf of Bowker LLC, seeking a post facto special permit for a side setback issue. We've got a very minimal side setback shortfall that was certainly inadvertent, and I think I'm only going to need a minute to get through it and give you an explanation, and I trust you've had a chance to look at the plans. And then we can get the tough one out of the way, tough hearing out of the way. So I don't know, Denise, can I move through this thing with the, oh, here we go. So this is the building permit set here. Looks like we got quite a few sheets. Let me try to get to the site plan if it's on there. It's like me trying to find something to watch on a Friday night here. Let's keep going. Well, I'll describe it to you anyhow. So what we have here, as you look from Warren Ave, on each side there's a slight encroachment. Really, that's due on the east side or the right-hand side. The encroachment, we need to be 15 feet from the lot line. The structure is more than 15 feet. The structure is 16.7 feet from the lot line. My client wasn't aware when he submitted his building permit application that the overhang counts. So with a 6-inch roof overhang, we're into that 15-foot setback by half a foot, 6 inches. So that's the nature of the side setback relief that we're seeking. Oh, thank you, Denise, on this side here. On the other side, we've got plenty of side setback. We sit with the roof overhang at 21.6 feet. However, there is another, we need a relief for total side setback as well. The total side setbacks are 36.2 feet, which are just shy of the 40 feet total. So for total side setback, it's not 15 and 15, it's 40. That's just the way that the dimensional table in the zoning bylaw works. So again, that's about all there is to it. The house is built, it's beautiful, I think it's tasteful. It's not a McMansion, it's relatively low-lying. And I think the only other thing I would add as an introductory remark is that this truly was inadvertent. This wasn't a beg for forgiveness rather than ask for permission. The plans that were submitted, the building plans that I just flipped through, showed it constructed the way that it was actually built, and this didn't come to my client's attention I don't think the building department picked up on it when the plans were submitted, the building permit issued, and this was recognized recently when my client sought a certificate of occupancy. So this is going to be his own residence. It was truly an oversight. I'd like to think it's de minimis, and we're asking for your relief. The planning board was not advisory in this case, I think because it was such a straightforward request, but certainly happy to answer any questions, and I've got Mr. Rick Lincoln here with me as well, the homeowner, if you'd like to ask him any questions. Thank you.
David, do you have any questions?
No questions, but just pointing out, as we saw in the planning board report, the site is almost 60,000, 58,000 square feet, where it's, you know, zoned 25,000. So this very modest encroachment really does not affect the overall site proportionally. So I think this, I would be in support of this.
We haven't got that far yet. Michael, anything?
No, I could make a comment, but I'll leave.
Okay. I'm going to open this to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak either in favor or against this petition? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the board. Rob, do you have any other?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. This is for board discussion only.
No. As Mr. Peck said, this is pretty straightforward. Should be a simple one. I have no comments.
I'm fine. I'm in support of the petition.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I went out there, checked it out. I mean, it's not like, this house is halfway up the driveway. You know, it's not like there's two houses abutting each other, so I have no problems with it. And I've been in the business, I've seen this happen way too many times. It happens, you know what I mean? It's not a deliberate thing, so I'm for it.
Gee, Peter, we've never seen this happen before, have we?
No.
We do these kind of things quite often because things happen. And we're talking literally inches, not large amounts of space. So I don't have any problem with it, and I guess I would, if you have nothing else?
Nope.
I would await the board's pleasure.
Okay, I move that we approve case number 4143 with the two conditions that are listed. And Jason, you're fine with the second? Okay.
All right, I have a motion in case number 4143 to approve by Mr. Leary and a second by Mr. Connor, and with two conditions. Do I have a vote, please? And with two conditions, do I have a vote, please?
Ed?
Okay, thank you. The motion is approved 5-0. Go right ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. The next case we will be doing is Landers Farm LLC, Landers Farm Way, in Plymouth, Massachusetts. The case number is 4142. I will ask the clerk to read the legal ad, please.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Case number 4142. The Plymouth Zoning Board of Appeals on the zoning bylaw will hold a public hearing in the Great Hall, Town Hall, 26 Court Street, Plymouth, Mass. On Monday, December 16th, 2024, at 7 p.m. to hear the petition of Landers Farm, LLC, requesting a special permit required per Section 205-18F to conduct earth removal in excess of 10 cubic yards on the property of Landers Farm Way, shown as Lot 33-2 and 33-3 on Plat 61 of the Assessor's Maps dated January 1st, 2024, in an RR zone. The petitioner or his or her representative and any other person desiring to be heard on this matter should appear at the time and place designated.
Thank you. Seated on this will be Mr. Leary, Mr. O'Reilly, Mr. Conroy, and Mr. Connor. And who will be present, and myself. Who will be presenting?
I'm going to present this one, please, Mr. Chairman. All right, so for the record, Rob
Okay,
Dam...
but before you start, I would like to take a minute. This has, before we even get going, every person that owns property in this town has a right to utilize their property to the best of their abilities. That has always been the belief of every board member here. And we're here, and this permit is here, or this request is here, because it's outside of the boundaries of what is set in motion with our bylaws. We, as a board, and this board, in 1923, this board was created, and if Rob wanted to do the history with you, he could tell you, the Zoning Board of Appeals was created because every landowner has the right to come to a board or a place where they can, if they can't do what they want with their property, they can appeal that decision or ask for certain conditions to be able to do that. And this is just a rough summary. But that is why we're here, because Mr. Landers has the right to petition this board, petition this town to do something with his property and maximize his ability on that property. And we're going to listen to every bit of that. What is not going to happen tonight or subsequently is that we're not going to be repetitious. In other words, when this gets into public comment, when somebody presents some information, if it's presented 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 times, that's not going to happen. Because, as you can see, the audience is full, and we have constraints in time and everything. So, in a meeting with the director of planning, Mr. Hartman, it was suggested that no one will be able to speak for more than 3 minutes, and that gives everybody an opportunity to pretty much talk about what's on their mind, but we're not going to go back and forth and back and forth. And the second thing that's going to happen during public comment is I am not going to allow anybody to ask questions of the petitioner. Ask the questions if you have questions. Ask the board. And if the petitioner wants to answer those questions, he will. If it's questions that we have not thought of or is important to us, we will ask the petitioner. But the audience is not going to have a back and forth with the petitioner. We can't allow that to happen. So with that said, I'm going to open it up. Mr. D'Ambrosio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Rob D'Ambrosio, attorney here in Plymouth at D'Ambrosio Law. I'm here on behalf of Landers Farm, LLC. Mr. Skip Landers is here with me. I've also got our civil engineer, Bill Madden of GAF Engineering with me. I'd like to give a high-level summary of what the project proposal is and why we're here for a special permit, and then yield the floor to Mr. Madden to give you some more color, the nuts and bolts of the site work itself, if I may. So, again, as Mr. Main pointed out, we're here seeking a special permit. Inspectional Services directed us to seek a special permit for earth removal in excess of 10 cubic yards. So the special permit is for the amount of earth being removed, not for the use. The use is agriculture, which is a by right use. We're in the Rural Residential Zoning District, the RR District. So there's two by right uses, primarily residential and agriculture. So the use is permitted here, and in fact, this use on this site has existed for over 100 years. So this is long before any of us. This has been used has been in agriculture, and it's been continuously in agriculture for 100 years. So there are many bogs on the site. Mr. Landers acquired the site 20 some odd years ago, and he's seeking to rehabilitate and improve the bogs and expand what's there. So as this board is probably aware in the audience, in order to maximize your yield and your production, bogs need to be of a certain shape. Certain varietals need to be planted. They need to be refreshed every so often, particularly with the new higher yielding varietals, and Mr. Madden will touch on that. And they need certainly plentiful water. In 2017, Mr. Landers took one step toward modernizing the bog, improved 4.5 acres of the existing 17 acres of bogs with so-called best management practices, the better varietals, the better soil stratification to retain water, and limit the amount of chemicals that need to be applied to the site. So this is a continuation of that project, and again, as Mr. Madden will touch upon, this was all envisioned since roughly 2005 when a so-called master plan for this site and the adjacent site was presented to this very board. So again, what do we have here? We've got 17 existing acres. The proposal is to develop 9 additional acres of working cranberry bogs and a 6-acre tailwater recovery pond. Again, I think it's important to note that this site happens to be removed from residential neighborhoods. There's no house within 500 feet of the proposed limit of work, at least 500 feet. And I think the only other introductory remark that I would make, by the way, it's a 130-acre site, which I'm sure you saw in the materials. It's a very large site. The only other introductory remark I'd make is we just today received a final memorandum from the peer review consultant, Environmental Partners. It's dense. We haven't had a chance to work through it, and certainly not a chance to make any changes to the plans or submit any supplemental materials to address the litany of proposals or suggestions within the letter. So my suggestion to this board, unless it's satisfied with the project as is, and again, I think the board does embrace at least some of a peer review consultant's recommendations. My suggestion would be that we'd like to come back and take another crack at this in light of some of these comments once we've had a chance to digest them and apply them. So I would ask the board, if you're not favorably disposed toward this project, to give us the latitude to come back with an improved project embracing some of these suggestions. For instance, raising the elevation of that irrigation pond that would allow it to gravity feed the bogs for irrigation purposes and reduce the amount of earth to be removed by about 400,000 yards. Again, that's the estimate that your peer review consultant provided. So just wanted to offer that caveat before Mr. Madden makes his presentation. And if I may, I'd like to yield to Mr. Madden.
Go right ahead. Yes, go right ahead. Please.
You can move forward with that thing. At this point, it works better than.
Okay. Good evening, members of the board. It's been a long time since I've seen you all together in the same place. And I'm here on behalf of Landers Farm. Skip, as you know, we worked on Janine Anderson's property for a number of years, which is just to the south of Landers Farm. The locust plan that's shown on the cover sheet there indicates the bogs that were created down on Janine Anderson's property. That project, as you might recall, did go on for a little while. did get constructed as intended. Things were built the way they were planned to be built, a couple of modifications here and there, but all in all, when the job was completed, it was what was anticipated. I don't know if you fully recall the situation that we presented back in, I think it was 2005. It might have been 2000. It's a long time. We have a tough time remembering the dates. But we were charged with putting together an overall master plan. We did indicate at the time we came for our initial permits that at some point in the future, Skip would be looking to do some work on Landers Farm, the acreage that he purchased off the Mountain Hill, so-called Mountain Hill bogs. So at that time, we prepared just a conceptual overview plan that indicated what we were going to do on Anderson's bogs and what could occur on Skip's on Landers Farm. So Landers Farm, we showed modifications to existing bogs, creation of additional cranberry bog acreage, and the addition of a tailwater pond / irrigation pond, and that was all done to accommodate the additional acreage that we were intending to put in. I think at that time we probably were looking at a little more than what we ended up with. Right now we're looking at just a small amount, over 9 acres. I want to say back then it might have been 18 acres or so. But in the same vein of the concept of the development of the cranberry acreage all together in one area, I mean, that's essentially what that master plan did. In the project that we're presenting before you is an elaboration on the conceptual master plan in conjunction with Janine Anderson's property. I know that when we reviewed the report by the planning board, I'm sure you've read it. There's a number of things in there. They refer to a number of cases. More than half of those cases pertain to the Anderson property. They don't pertain to Landers Farm properties. So I just wanted to make that point. I understand that there was some. Just one of the comments that was made, there was a cranberry bog that was never constructed that was turned to solar. That's just not an accurate statement. That cranberry bog was constructed. There's images. There's a picture right in front of you that shows the planted acreage there and what have you. So it was a cranberry bog. It did get built. There wasn't any intention to come before the board with a different project. The project that we're proposing was a cranberry bog for Anderson, is a cranberry bog for Landers Farm. As Rob did indicate, these bogs are 100 years old or more. The latest information that we've been able to put our hands on show some activities there in 1933, but that's published information from an 1887 survey. So, you know, these are truly the old style cranberry bogs. They're kettle bogs. They're set well above the water table. They're a little more difficult to manage than our newly constructed acreage that we build nowadays. But we're able to at least follow the same protocol with the design. We're able to do a design that incorporates all of our best management practices for cranberry bog construction that have been put forth by the Cape Cod Cranberry Growers Association and the UMass Cranberry Experiment Station. And the experiment station is a place that's full of their scientists and PhDs. That's what they do. They study cranberries. They study the environment. They study the effects of growing cranberries, whether it be fertilizer, herbicides. They talk about varieties, different varieties that are just better, higher yielding. And that's one of the things that's really the driving force behind the Landers Farm, is that the 100-year-old cranberry bogs. They're not only 100 years old, the vines are 100 years old. Those vines have been producing cranberries since the day that they were placed in service, with the exception of the renovation that we did for Skip in 2017. So we did do a renovation up there in 2017. Have seen pretty good results of that renovation. So he asked us to put forth an improvement plan for his farm, and that's really what our project is a farm improvement project. It does involve earth removal in order to get there, to get to where we want to be farm-wise. I mean, as Rob stated, the site's roughly 129 acres in size. The total project will affect about 70 acres in total. The cranberry bog acreage that we're looking to add is really just a little over 9 acres with an irrigation pond, a tailwater pond that's about 6 acres in size. The 6 acres in size is what's required to adequately manage water on that site. Currently, the water is managed through 2 6-inch wells. They have some yield restrictions associated with the wells, but following some of the discussion that was put forth by the planning board and by the review consultant, there was some discussion as to whether we wanted to flow the water onto the bogs by gravity, pump the water onto the bogs, whatever the case was. In this case, we were choosing to manage the drainage by gravity. We felt that, drainage is usually one of the biggest problems with new acreage. Improperly drained bogs that don't drain well, they have a few more problems than very well draining bogs, whether it's a fungus, an herbicide, keeping quality of the berries, things of that nature, just overall health of the crop. Intrusion of weed species is another one that you see more on an upland bog that's lacking water than you do on a wetland bog that would typically kill off all that unwanted upland vegetation that finds its way in there during the seasons of the year that are more appropriate for it. So that's where we have started on this project. So it did involve digging down to get to the water table. We wanted to use the larger source of water than what we have, only because of the limitations with wells. They just don't have a tremendous amount of yield. And when we bump the site from 17 acres to 26 acres, consequently, there'll be a little bit more need for water. And, particularly if we manage the crop a little bit differently and we change the variety that's planted out there, if we move from the blacks in the house, the early blacks in the house that are out there, and go to a more robust variety that has a much higher yield, something that yields cranberries in the 300 to 400 barrel per acre range, we would like to have the ability to provide the water as needed to cultivate that crop for its ultimate yield. And predominantly the water that's needed, through the summertime, it might not be as difficult as it is to deal with during winter months. In putting, say, the winter flow on the bogs, it's required to put all those underwater, the 26 acres, in a very short period of time. Wells just can't deliver the water in a short period of time, hence the reason to construct a water supply reservoir as we have on this particular site. You might recall from other projects that I've presented in the past to this board, the best management practices that are employed with the construction are just that. They are the best management practices. Not everybody who builds a cranberry bog in this state today follows all those practices. Landers Farm intends to. Many of our clients intend to follow those best management practices. And those best management practices put a lot of emphasis on water control and how that water is treated, how that water is consumed, particularly irrigation water on a cranberry bog. It's not as simple as watering your lawn at home and keeping it green. There's a little bit more to it in that regard. So in any event, we prepared the plans. We submitted those to the town back in October. We had a meeting with the Cedarville Steering Committee. We also had the meeting a couple of weeks ago with the planning board. They provided a recommendation to to the zoning board on things. We are also looking to phase the project. We show it as 3 phases, and we have broken them up into areas that are larger than what's required under the bylaw. So, 5 acres is the limitation within the bylaw. It's very difficult to work with heavy equipment, with slopes and excavations and things of that nature in a small footprint. You might recall that at Anderson's site, we asked for, I think, a little relief on the acreage requirement, and we received it. We've also asked some relief on acreage on a couple of other projects and received those waivers as well. Granted, each site speaks directly for itself. Each has its own characteristics, and the rationale behind decision-making is solely based upon the issues of the particular site. As Rob pointed out, the underlying zoning district, before we can even come forth for an earth removal permit, we have to have an allowed use in the underlying zoning district. It's a residential agricultural district. It's a RR, rural residential district, and agriculture is allowed within that zoning district, and that's what we're proposing is an agricultural end use at that site as exists today. The water supply that we're talking about, is the creation of that 6-acre cranberry bog. We were proposing to bring that down to the water table. It's been suggested that we modify that plan and use the wells to fill an upgradient bog and modify the manner in which we want to handle water, develop the water supply and handle it. We hadn't done that. At this point, we selected what we thought would be the best choice for the site. On the existing site, the existing cranberry bog acreage, all the water is registered to the Mass Water Management Act permit, so we're fully compliant with Mass DEP in water management with respect to the cranberry cultivation and what have you. On our site here, we're looking to take the 17.2 acres and bring them to 26.4 with that reservoir. It does involve earth removal. The earth removal is just a little over 2 million yards. That's what's proposed to bring this site down to a reasonable grade for the construction integration of the new acres with the existing acres. As far as like topsoil on the site, all of our topsoil would be retained on site, used for slope stabilization. None of that was projected to be removed as part of the earth removal project. We would be leaving the topsoil on site, and we would be using the subsoil and anything that overlays the top of the parent material as bog dike road material or slope stabilization material. That's what the intention would be there. As far as the site grading with the topography, as you know, there's steep topography all throughout that area. I mean, it's called Mountain Hill for a reason, and I think that the high elevation coupled with the peaks and the valleys of the topography that exists on that site leads to a fair amount of excavation. We're required under the bylaw to slope off adjacent grades at 3-to-1 or 33%. That's shallower in slope than some of the existing slopes that currently exist on the site, but nevertheless, that 3-to-1 would be a uniform slope that's easily managed and easily stabilized. And I think if you wanted to reflect back onto the Anderson property, you might recall 20 years ago when that project was first started, when the tailwater pond was constructed prior to the bogs, those slopes adjacent to Hedges Pond Road were cut, they were removed, and they were seeded. They were overseeded with, I think we hydroseeded those sites. But you go out there today and it's a pretty healthy stand of white pines and some oaks that are blended in there. The vegetation has grown in remarkably well, not unexpected, I might add, but it is it does look pretty good, and has vegetated well, and I think the 3-to-1 slopes as required by the bylaw are easy to achieve. They're moderate to work with, and we're able to do that. And we're not seeking any relief for steeper slopes. There may be some steeper slope inside the Cranberry Cross section itself, but I think that would be something that would be attributable to the Cranberry Bog design, not necessarily the earth removal that's surrounding the perimeter of the site. There will be erosion control on the site the way it needs to be on the site. I think I might have made a comment with the planning board that we weren't going to be providing some erosion control, but I think I might have been speaking directly to like at a top of a slope where we really didn't have any erosion coming off of our site or any appreciable amount of rainwater coming onto the site that we needed to control and redirect in some instance, or just let it go down to the site, to the Cranberry acreage itself. We are planning on trying to capture as much as our surface water runoff that runs off the surface of the ground and direct that to the reservoir. That's another reason why we chose a lower reservoir, is we wanted to capitalize on the opportunity to recover the surface water runoff that doesn't infiltrate into the ground. So, we get about 48 inches of rainfall a year here. To us, we felt that it would be reasonable to expect about 2 feet of water, 24 inches of rainfall, to find its way back into our reservoir. So that's what we were expecting there. The Plymouth County Soil Survey indicates the site, other than the Cranberry Bog acreage, as Carver Coarse Sands. So they're Carver Coarse Sands at varying slopes, and that's evidenced in the soil survey of Plymouth County. There are some small areas of Hinckley loamy sand, but any of those areas that are excavated and don't provide a quality sand for the Cranberry operation will be used for our construction materials. The vegetation that we're talking about removing is the superficial vegetation that's there now. It's upland forest. It's not wetland. The only wetland that we have nearby the site or on the site is the fringe of the Cranberry Bogs that are BVW, and in some instances the bank that holds back the Cranberry Bog, or the ditch just outside the Cranberry Bog that holds back the dike road. Some consider that a bank. DEP does, so we'll go along with DEP's jurisdiction on that. The excavation of the material, as I said, would be about 2 million yards, and I have all this on plans. I'll probably just skim through those in a moment if that's acceptable to the board. We are talking about the three phases that exceed 5 acres. That is something that we'd be looking for. I discussed briefly the sedimentation erosion control that we will be placing to prevent any off-site erosion or any excess stormwater from finding its way into our site that may cause some erosion and subsequent sedimentation of an off-site area or an area that we weren't anticipating. Let's see, the work. We're not doing any of the work within 50 feet of any public-owned property. Our limit of clearing line is set at 50 feet from the property line in most instances. In some instances, there's not any work proposed within a couple of 100 feet of a property line, but where we are working near a property line, we're respecting the 50-foot setback to that property line. The vehicular and pedestrian circulation to the site, not expecting much in the line of pedestrian circulation on there, with the exception of the employees that are there working. The vehicular access to the site, once the bogs are constructed, will be pretty much limited to the foreman or the manager of the Cranberry acreage. Predominantly the traffic on the site would be a pickup truck. However, during certain times of the year, whether they're applying a fertilizer, whether they're sanding the bogs in the wintertime, whether they're changing some irrigation along the line. I mean, that might involve a little bit more on the line of traffic through the operation of the bog, but not very significant. Certainly not as significant as the residential subdivision we have to the north that apparently has, I don't know, somewhere in the order of 200 homes there, and that, to me, reflects roughly 2,000 vehicle trips a day on a residential use. So our use on a day-to-day basis after construction is going to be relatively minor. The construction vehicle trip traffic that we've been talking about is, in the past, the board has granted 40 round trips a day for removal, and that's been the limit. That's roughly, I don't know, I use 25 yards per truck just for the ease of math, and that's about 1,000 yards a day that would be coming off a site on with a 40 truck load limit. Those are throughout the course of a day. If you go to an earth removal site, and I'm sure you've all been there, if you get there first thing in the morning, your first 10 trucks are out of there in about an hour. And then there's roughly, the remaining trucks are distributed out over the course of the day. And in many instances, when we have a truck limit of 40 or 50, they really have exhausted their daily limit of truck trips by noontime. At least that's an experience that I have. So I just bring that up for what it's worth. We're looking at 40 heavy vehicle trips a day as defined in the bylaw, and we're looking at about 15 per day of employee trips. We're going to have equipment operators out there. We're going to have truck drivers out there. We're going to have supervision out there. We're going to have foremen out there. And those are the people that will drive a vehicle that's something less than a dump trailer, let's say. There's no wetlands on the site other than the cranberry-related wetlands. The water supply on the site is our water supply. There is a small portion, and I think it's like the northwest corner of a site. There's a very small portion of a Zone 2 to a public water supply well. We've avoided working in that area. We're not anywhere near the Zone 2. And if we were to reflect back on our original plan, our concept plan that we did in 2005 or 2008, our reservoir was placed closer to that. But as we went through the design with Landers Farm personnel, we just reorientated a couple of things so that we didn't conduct an excavation that would be too close to a Zone 2. There are specific rules on excavation within a Zone 2, and we felt that avoiding those types of things made the most sense in this instance. And if we were to compare the old plan versus the current plan, you'll see there was a reservoir shown up to that northwest corner. It's not what we intend to do at the present time. I'll flip through this. Which one do I use, Rob? The red arrow?
No, the arrows on either side of the red button.
Okay. This plan indicates the majority of the site, the entire portion of the existing conditions in which we're intending to work. So you can see the 3 cranberry bogs that we presently have. You can see that there's a cul-de-sac that's shown up on the north end of the property. That cul-de-sac was there when we filed a plan with the planning board for the purpose of establishing a zoning freeze. When the earth removal bylaws were intended to be changed, we filed a preliminary plan in, I think it was 2017. We followed that up with a definitive plan within 8 months. That definitive plan was consequently approved by the planning board in 2018. I think it was March of 2018. And what that effectively did is that froze the zoning that was in effect at the time we filed the initial plan. So the first plan was filed in 17. So when we did our earth removal permit, that's before you tonight, we're operating under the 2016 zoning bylaw. So the things that we've prepared today are based on the 2016 bylaw. This plan indicates what we're looking to do. It's the overview plan, so you can see there's a rectangular cranberry bog section to the east. The reservoir is to the southwest, and that last cranberry section, I'll call it more westerly, is going to be expanded upon and built in that location. This is the plan that indicates the reservoir. There's been some discussion about that. We show that. I believe the elevation is 39 to the top of it. I want to say it's in excess of 30 feet in excavation just to get to the water. There's a large slope that goes that slopes down to the water, but that allows us to flow everything by gravity back into that pond. So we thought that that was an appropriate measure when we first undertook the job. This is just more additional information on that, on the cranberry acreage to the east. You can see that there's a 50-foot setback distance to the property line that's required on that easterly side, a little bit to the north, very minor amounts of excavation going to the north and to the northeast. If we slide over to the southwest of the site, there's a little steeper piece of ground there, and you can see that there's a more... Use this? Okay, thanks. There's a shaky hands. There's... make you all dizzy, but there's the slope that I was referring to there. The hashed line that we have right here, that's the limit of the zone 2, and you can see that we are not doing anything. There's no activity proposed really close to that area. We're just sloping off the ground to match into the existing topography at the top of the slope, because our bottom of the slope is already defined by the cranberry bog itself. So when we're trying to integrate these together, we want to consider sequential flooding. The new bog to the east will be the highest bog. Each one will flow down, and I think that the one to the east will flow to the southeast bog, and that'll in turn return water to the reservoir. And this bog right here, there's a flume. There's a flume right there. We're looking to send our drainage from that acreage back into our pond as well. This plan just shows our details where we're talking about having some stabilized outlets where our water will discharge into the pond. We show our cranberry bog section. Our cranberry bog section is shown here. A section at the toe of the slope and the roadway with a small swale is shown on the side of the road. It'd be on the left side of the road in this case. We don't think we need that, but we put it there. It would, in the winter months, I'm sure it would help control some water in the event that some accumulates in that location. But that's what we're seeking to do there. And then immediately to the right, in that far right-hand corner, that's our slope stabilization, what we're going to do with the topsoil and what have you on the site. It'll be spread, I think it's 4 inches in thickness, and hydro-seeded with a suitable seed mixture approved by USGS. No, I'm sorry, not USGS, but the Soil Conservation Service. This plan that we added is the truck route that we're showing. Our acreage that we're proposing right now is over here to the north. We come off this site, and this is the existing road that comes from or through the Anderson property, Janine Anderson's property, and Landers Farm or Skip Landers, they hold an easement to travel back and forth across that way for access in and out of his site. There's also, at the cul-de-sac, at the top of the sheet up here, there's also a driveway there. It's a paved driveway. It doesn't look like it's been used by anybody other than the manager of the farm to gain access to the site. We're not intending to use that for anything. That's not going to be used on this site during the development of the project. We're going to use the truck route that we've shown on this sheet right here. So the plan would be to go up Hedges Pond Road to Route 3A, State Road, and then I think get onto Route 3 at that location. And I don't recall if there was a restriction on whether we go, north or south on Route 3. But that's the truck route. That was the truck route that we had on the first project. To my knowledge, there was no issues with trucking that I was made aware of. Not to say that there weren't any, but I was not made aware of any. We thought it worked out fairly well throughout the duration of the project. And I guess that was. Yeah, I think that's pretty much with the physical features of the site. We are proposing to, as I said, build the bogs using all the best management practices, all the things you're supposed to do, all the things that Growers Association would like to see, all the things that the experiment station has proposed as best management practices with the project. So that's pretty much what we have on this thing right now. It's the overview. I think that perhaps it'd be better to turn it over to the board for any questions you may have on things, or if there's anything in particular you'd like me to add, I'm happy to do that.
Board members.
So, on the tailwater recovery, you proposed that elevation. I thought you said for flow reasons? That low.
Well, we'd be pumping the water on the cranberry bogs. We want a gravity flow off into the tailwater pond, and then there'll be a lift pump that would be pumping the water back onto the bogs. So we'd be lifting it from that elevation, whatever it might be, 30 or so, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, up to the 35, 40 feet.
Okay, I'm just reading that comment in the peer review, and I think they say just the opposite.
That's their choice. They're just saying, as an alternative, could you look at raising it up,
right,
pumping the water into it, and then flowing it by gravity? And yes, that's an option to evaluate.
Okay, because it says that you'd have to pump it into the bog. Okay. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Anything right at the moment?
Do you want me to get started, or is that?
Just any preliminary stuff, right? Go right ahead.
Well, I mean, some of the stuff I saw you missing out there, and I'm sure everybody out there wants to ask this question, is okay that there was no traffic study in there at all.
No, pardon me?
Traffic study in there at all in what we have. The problem I have with using what you did back in 2005, I think, is things have changed out there. And now we have, right next door, 5 other businesses, the boats, a variety of businesses. And, one of the things that you can't go past would be that your traffic and the traffic existing on the road can't equal more than 85% of the volume of traffic that's allowed on the road during the day. So I definitely would have to see something on that for sure.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that there should be, at least I'm led to believe there's a traffic study that was done down there on Hedges Pond Road, and I would also believe if there was a study done, there's traffic counts. And if those traffic counts are available, we could look at those and see what those numbers are that you bring up. But I'm thinking that at least.
Well, I'm just saying, back in 2005, that was a whole different story. Now you've got that whole development that was put in out front with the boats, with disposal there, quite a few businesses. So that adds quite a bit. So, that Hedge Pond Road now has a real volume of traffic. I'd like to see that isn't over the 85%. Then I realize where the 2018 decision of the planning board gives you, you are now in, how would I say it, that you only have to abide by the old gravel bylaw, not the new one. But in that, we do have, like, one is you have the 2 years you got to come back for extensions. That's one. Two is you do have the 5 acres open, and to be honest with you, I would kind of want to hold it. If you're going to go to the old bylaw and hold us to the old one, then I think we should hold you to the old bylaw too. So I'd want to see something showing a plan of, the 2 acres. I realize you have the phases, but I want to see something on the, some kind of plan on the 2 years, what you expect to accomplish each one of those. The 5 years, but I'm just reading my notes here. And of course you have the 2 years that we limit you to, and the 5 acre open acres. And you must remember the issue we had at one point there, that we almost revoked the permit in the last one because there was more than 5 acres opened up. And at the time when you came back, it was a complaint of a board member that had the building commissioner go out there. Building commissioner had you reseed it, so you complied. And because he was an agent of the board, you were back into compliance at the time. But again, that's one of the things, a couple things I'd like to see. So, David.
I have kind of a similar follow-up between current earth removal regs and old ones. So as you've confirmed, you're using the 2016 ones. But I would welcome the design to conform with our current bylaw. Because when I looked at the drawing, so one of the other changes in our new one is that any contour change of more than 40 feet needs a little terrace. And your current design has slopes of 60 to 70 feet without a terrace. Is kind of one thing that was put in the newer one to control erosion, that it's also good practice. And so I would ask, just like Michael was asking about conformance of the old one, but can your proposal be designed to, in a sort of statement of good faith and good practice, designed to our current bylaw and not stick to the old one? So that's my question.
Do you want me to reply now, or would you?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
Certainly it would look into that, and just as another point, when you send these things out for peer review and a peer review consultant comes up with a comment or what have you, it might not fall squarely within the regulations, but we know we need to do with that comment and we need to comply. I mean, and I think that things like that would come up in this exact situation. We do show a bench on one of these years, and we selected that one because of the issue with the pond. I think you're talking about the other slope. I know where you're speaking of, but I guess we can look at that. We don't have a problem looking at that at all. We just filed it under those other regulations, under the 2016.
What's that? Good?
So Attorney D'Ambrosa stated that he would like to come back after taking into account our peer review. Aren't we just wasting our time?
Well, we're going to get to that. We are wasting.
Well, I mean, it seems like we're just wasting
After-
our time here, and we should come back when we get a new plan. You know, whether it's the new or the old bylaw, there has to be continuity of the natural topography. You know,
And they're all, you spoke, you spoke a moment ago about complying with the new and the old, and the slopes, and David talked about 40 feet, and we've all are aware of the safety issues. The peer reviewer talked about that exact same thing and safety issues. And there was a death on that property because of slopes. So we, as a board, want to make darn sure that things are safe. So keep that in mind.
Understood?
So
Yes,
Bruce,
go
just to-
right ahead, please.
I want to thank Ed for asking a very pertinent question.
why are we even here? Why are we continuing on?
But I want to ask the chair if it would be appropriate to have, at this time, to have Jason weigh in, or should we hold off on that?
I would very much like to have
That's okay.
the inspector of directional services. Go right ahead, Jason, please.
Thank you. I'm not sure what your question might be, but anything you may have, I can answer.
Well,
Would you be able quickly to summarize your thoughts on this proposal now, or would you prefer to wait?
I think I'd rather wait. I did write the memo, and I think it summarizes some of my position, and I certainly can comment as things come in. But I think given the evening and the attendance, that maybe, you know, if you have specific questions, I can address those. Otherwise, I could talk just like everyone for hours on this. So, yeah.
okay. Mr. Madden, do you have anything else you would like to add right at the moment?
I'm pretty sure, I think I covered most of it. If you have anything in particular to ask, I'm happy to answer that, and we can wait till a little later if that's more convenient.
There was one question that I have, and it has
a looming humanitarian crisis. Larissa Martinez, 31, is among those who have struggled to reintegrate into Honduran society after being deported from the U.S. in 2021 with her 3 children. Driven by economic desperation in the absence of her husband, who had migrated and left her for another woman, the single mother sought a better life in the U.S. Since her return to Honduras, Martinez has spent the last 3 years searching for a job, not just to support her kids, but also to pay off the $5,000 she owes to relatives for the trip north. Her efforts have been unsuccessful. She built a wobbly wooden home tucked away in the hilly fringes of San Pedro Sula, where she sells meat and cheese to get by. But sales have been slim, and tropical rains have eaten away at the flimsy walls where they sleep. So she's begun to repeat a chant in her head. If I don't find work in December, I'll leave in January. Cesar Munoz, a leader at
partial.
And I
of
think
property.
I think I based my statement a little bit on the renovation that we did on that central easterly piece. When I consulted with, it was Rob Vaca at the time, who was the conservation agent. You know, we worked through the same issues that you're working through, and I don't see any problem working through things conservation will have on this project. I'm
I
happy to
just
do
want to
that.
make sure everything
Understood.
is in the record, everything.
Got it.
Okay. Any other questions from the board right at the moment?
So, Attorney D'Ambrosio, you're going to ask for a motion to continue?
Well, I was just going to make a
No,
remark
no.
about that.
Just wasting our here.
Right, yeah, I wanted to speak to that 10 seconds. I did ask, as of last Wednesday, we hadn't seen any peer review consultant. I asked staff, I said, guys, I can't imagine that the ZBA is going to have time to digest whatever they send, nor are we going to have time to address it, so shouldn't we continue? And I was told that the board's preference was not to continue. That's why we didn't ask for a continuance in advance, so.
I don't know who told you that, but the board was never,
Yeah, but because I agree with what you're saying. I mean, certainly we acknowledge there's a lot to get through here, and we wouldn't expect you to give us the thumbs up with these comments outstanding, so we would like to continue. Thank you.
well,
Well, first of all, I don't think we should continue right now. We've named the case. So we already have the people here. I want to hear from the audience. I mean, if we didn't name the case, I wouldn't let them, because once testimony's given, we can't change. But we've already heard testimony. Let's hear from them. And then if he wants to continue, we'll talk, and then we'll give you a list of what we.
I agree.
So if they're going to show up and make radical changes to the plan, they're going to redo they're going to totally redo the water issue. They're going to reduce it by a minimum of 400,000 cubic yards, and there's going to be dramatic changes. Can the audience comment on what's going to be proposed? This whole plan is going to change. So if you want to hear
But the audience has a choice of coming back. Right now, there's a lot of people out there that might not be able to come back.
But what's going to happen is, under how it works, is they're going to submit their comments tonight, and they can get one crack at the apple.
No.
We've done that before on plenty of cases. They have one crack at the apple. So what I'm saying to the audience,
Unless we don't close public comment.
Even still.
I'm just telling you, the audience would be foolish to do any comments tonight if they're going to come back dramatic changes. If you have one crack at the apple, if you want to be heard, you're going to comment on this plan that's going to be dramatically changed? Just don't waste your time, is what I'm saying.
And I have to agree with Ed. I initially thought the same thing. Everybody's here now, but we may see, he's right, we may see some significant changes that would affect comments that people would make, either good or bad, and if we continue it, anyone that speaks tonight is not going to get the chance to do that again.
Correct.
No one likes to come back, nor do we, but that may be the way to do it. I don't know.
Kevin?
Well, I'm looking at the peer review, and there's just a lot that you guys need to come back with. So I had the same thought as Ed before we spoke, and I think, as Peter said, as painful as it might be for everyone to come back, because, I mean, there's not enough information right here for me to support this project. And I think, in the spirit of openness and making sure that everybody has a chance to speak, and to speak to what they're actually asking us to do, it makes a lot of sense to do that. As inconvenient it is for you, it is for us. So I agree.
And therein lies the predicament. We, as I stated in the beginning of this hearing, Mr. Landis has a right to petition this board to do what he's asking to do. But you folks, all of you folks, have the right to be heard about this petition. And the way that it works is, if you speak tonight and then we continue this hearing and you come back, you will not be able to speak again. And there could be some significant changes. And I don't want anybody not to be able to speak, not to be able to share their thoughts, not be able to understand the information that's given completely. I don't want to continue this hearing because it means a ton more work for all of us. But in the spirit of fairness and in making everything open, let the sun shine in, I think we have no choice but to change it. So, excuse me, please. So, I think the board is pretty positive about not having enough information this evening to even consider any of this. And we got a peer review that has so many issues in it that even if they presented all of their stuff tonight, it could change dramatically. So we'd be wasting time. So I am going to leave public comment open. That means that when this hearing is continued, the public will have a chance to speak. Normally, on a night like tonight, we would go through all of the public comment, and then we would close public comment, and nobody from the audience, only the 5 of us and the petitioner would be able to talk, all in open meeting, all in front of you, but it would exclude your ability to participate, and I don't want to do that. Every one of you are taxpayers in this town, and you have the right to talk about this, and we all know this. We, as a board, know the emotional thoughts behind this project. We're not deaf. We see what's going on. And all of us have quite a bit of experience with this kind of thing. So in order to keep the lawsuits to a minimum, in order to keep everybody happy, and in order to see all of the information that this board needs, I'm going to entertain Mr. D'Ambrosia's thoughts on a continuance, and I'm going to ask, do you want to present any more stuff this evening, or do you want to just come back with your complete case?
Yeah, I mean, I think we wanted to give you an overview, but certainly, as you pointed out, there's going to be quite a few changes based on that letter we received today. So I don't think there's any point in us belaboring this tonight, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So how much time do you think it's going to take for you to assimilate all of this information to talk about all of the stuff that's in that peer review report to begin with?
Right. Well, yeah. Well certainly, Mr. Madden's going to have to rejigger all the plans and basically start from scratch in many respects. So I'd say at least 6 weeks. 8 is probably more realistic, so we don't ask for another continuance. I don't know how the board feels about that. And I also know that on the second Wednesday of February, that's President's Day, so I don't know, Denise, what the schedule is for that February 17th. I think that's school vacation week, too. So
there is no meeting that night.
So there's only one meeting in February? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, then and is February 3rd an option?
March 3rd.
March 3rd?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, is that better than rushing? Yeah, so I think March 3rd would be good for us if it's good for you.
Gentlemen, what are your feelings?
Well, I just want to make one more comment to the folks here, because I know it's frustrating for everyone to come here. But as Michael said, several of us have been here too many years, and we've heard over and over again, just a slight change got made, and then somebody comes back the next month and says, well, I demand to speak because I didn't know they were going to change that. And it might even be a change for the better. And these meetings could go on for 6 months if it went that way. So, we're in accordance with town council, and we just can't let everybody come back and back and back to discuss these things. So, and I think it's clear from what you've heard, and I don't want to speak for anyone else, but if the board were to vote on this tonight, they wouldn't want to bring it to a vote because we did just get, some of this information, 3 pages worth today, and it's the people that work for us and you as telling us what they think is good and bad about this project. So we count a lot in what they advise us on. So we need time to study it. They need time because they've already heard a few issues. And I think the only fair thing is, even though everyone's inconvenienced and no one likes to come back out, is that we do just that and get a good date to continue it, You have a hand up out there, Michael. I don't know. There's a hand.
Well, once we go to that, I'm just make a comment that Well, I'm just gonna make a comment on what we wanna have.
Yes,
When they get
yes.
back, but what do you, how are you feeling on it?
No.
All right.
Okay. Jason, do you have anything you'd like to talk about?
The only thing that I'll say is that, and I might be stating some of the obvious, but we received today a peer review in regard to the project that the applicant has the right, as you indicated, to respond to, and that these typically do trigger alterations in the plans, and that if any of these individuals want to, in between the hearing processes, touch base with my office if I have any of the updated information, I could certainly make it available. Right now, all we have is the initial peer review. But again, understanding that there's a lot of interested parties that might be interested between that time and the next hearing. If we have anything available, I'll certainly make it available to them. But that, again, we will be looking for this peer review we just received to be responded to from the applicant with likely revisions or changes to address these issues. And then that would then in turn be debated on at the next regular hearing, which could in turn again trigger another series of alterations again. And so whether it's approved or denied still remains open, but the ongoing proceedings will happen either way. And so I think that's an important note to take, is that the board has the responsibility, whether they like it or not, to entertain the hearing and go through the motions. Listen to all the both sides of it, and we're just at the beginning, and hopefully we can get something a little clearer for the people in the audience to know what is truly being offered up, because again, this is just the start of it. So, and again, I'll be available at our office to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is apparent we are going to go ahead and move this meeting. And no, I am not going to take any comment from the audience right at the moment. Ma'am, I don't do hand signals. I don't understand, and I have a procedure that I have to follow. So I would await the end. There will be no more notice in the paper or anything, so the folks that are interested in this and that want to speak about this project, first, as the building inspector has stated, he will have up-to-date stuff sooner than we will, and he gladly talk to anybody about it. And also, there will be no more notice as to when this hearing is going to happen, so we will set a date tonight. Make sure you write it down, because it won't be in the paper, it won't be anything anymore. But public comment will still be open. You will still be able to have a say.
Mr. Chairman, I just note it will be also on the town website with the agenda for the Zoning Board of Appeals. So it'll be specifically there. So keep it. But if when we continue to it, also watch the town website, which will tell you which day.
He's younger than me. Us old people don't do websites.
Yeah.
I still use stamps and mail. Okay, so I await a motion.
Don't let Ed make the motion for the, well, don't we have to discuss what he wants to bring back?
Yes, please.
Okay, so, Rob, a few things, okay, so mainly the traffic study. I want to make sure that traffic with yours and the traffic on the road doesn't go over the 85%. That's one of the, yeah. Sorry about that. Okay. So the one thing I want to make sure is we address that traffic situation, make sure it doesn't go over 85% of the intended volume of the road. That's one. Two, roughly about where do you expect to be every 2 years? Some kind of plan showing that, rather than, I know you've got the phases, but I want to see, because we do have to do 2-year extensions if you're going to go by the old bylaw. Also, myself, I'd want to stick, if we're going to stick by the old bylaw, I'd stick by it. It's the 5 open acres is what I'm going to want. And then a question for the board is, so do we want to kick open old scabs, or do we want to have him prove the incidental or subordinate too? Because what he's making on the gravel removal compared to the bogs, that is part of the old.
Yes, it is. We will get into that, and we will get into that extensively. And what that is, Rob, is we want some kind of an analysis to prove that this is necessary and that the gravel is incidental. Because we start doing some
Or
math. Subordinate too. We start doing the math, at least I do, and you got to grow an awful lot of cranberries to catch up to what you're getting, what the value of the fill coming out of there is.
Oh.
So
The vines are 100 years old, so we got a lot of time.
well,
Just so that everybody understands, because that's what distinguishes it from a cranberry operation other than a gravel. Otherwise it's either cranberry or it's gravel. So without that, it's strictly gravel.
so we're going to have that, Rob. Anything else, gentlemen, that you want to see?
He'll respond to all the new questions. He'll respond to all the new questions.
Okay, I await a motion of the board.
You want to make it, Ed?
Sure. Well, I hereby make a motion to continue this hearing to March 3rd. Is that the date? 7 o'clock, or we should probably hear the other easier cases before it.
There's nothing right now on that night.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion on case 4142 to continue this hearing until March the 3rd for the reason of lack of information. Coming back, we will want, some of the things we will want is a traffic study. We're going to want to know what's going on at the end of every 2 years in the phases. Going to only 5 acres to be opened. We're going to want some kind of an analysis on the money thing, and I don't want to hear that you're going back 100 years, because 100 years is not going to work. All right, we want an up-to-date analysis of what it costs to take that stuff out of there, what the cost to plant the bogs, and what the production of the bogs is going to do. I meant to ask Mr. Madden, how many total acres of bogs are we going to have growing at the end of this?
23, right, Bill? 26, I'm sorry.
Okay, 26 acres, and you're hoping to get, are all of those bogs going to be not, what are they, early grays or something? They're going to be the hybrids that'll do 300
No, I think we have-
barrels an acre? All 26 acres of them?
Yeah, I think we have 6 now that are upgraded, then we'll have 9 new ones, and then we got to do the rest.
Okay. So that'll want to be figured in there because, you know, we want to see everything. Yes.
So on prior gravel removal operations, with the 5-acre limitation, how many trips we did analyzed, how much acreage would have to be taken, or how much gravel would have to be taken out if there's 5 acres open on the phases, so that one time we had, they'd have to take out 80 truckloads to meet that gravel removal operation when we did the math. You know what I'm talking?
Yeah, because they had so much open.
Yes. So, just so you know what we're going to be looking for, Rob.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite follow that.
So if you have 5 acres allowed at one time, and based on the amount of acreage you're going to be taking out of there, how many trips will it take to get all the acreage out of there under that time period if we're phasing it? So it's a math equation.
You're the math guy. Does that make sense to you, Bill?
It does. I think we can get some little more clarification on that.
I just want to make sure the numbers work. Thank you.
So can we remove that material with that level of disturbance and that number of truckloads
Yes.
in that time frame?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Under your phasing.
Okay, I have a motion by Ed and a second by Kevin to continue this hearing until March the 3rd. All those in favor? It is unanimous. We will be back here March the 3rd. I hope to see all of you folks. And as David said, you can check on the website. I got a computer, but I don't really know how to do that. When I want information, I call that lady over there.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to take about a 5-minute recess to let the room clear, and then we have a little bit more business to do this evening. All right, we're back in session, and all we have to do right now is the minutes for the last meeting, and I wasn't here, so Michael, you're on.
Really? They look good to me.
Oh, we can go home.
They look good to me.
So is there any comments on that? I looked at it, I was fine with it.
Me too.
No comments.
No comments.
No comments.
Okay, so do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of November 4th.
I'll second it. And
All in favor?
all approved? All in
Aye.
favor? Here we go.
Wonderful. That concludes the business of the Zoning Board of Appeals for this evening. I wish everybody a happy and safe holiday. Good night.